Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gents, and of course, thank you so much for watching. Well, we're going to take a stab at the rear fender on this '89 Softail. I kind of have an idea in my head what I want to do, but it's pretty fuzzy, so we're just going to have to jump in and start hacking and chopping and see where we get. Also, if time allows, we are going to jump on a few other things on the bike if we get that fender done, but we'll just have to wait and see. So the plan all along was to get rid of that FL fender that came on the back of this bike. Now, I know there's a lot of you that probably say, well, you should have left it on there and all that, but I'm just not a big fan of mixing FL and FX fenders. That's just me. And also, I want to try something a little different. Now, let's be honest. Whatever I try could actually turn out to look like crap. But you know what? You're never going to know unless you give it a shot. So that's what we're going to do. So my first thought was to find a factory style. I think they call them bobbed rear fender, you know, where they kind of come out and go up like that. And I was going to do some chopping on it to try to shorten it a little bit and also kind of show a little more of the rear tire on the back. But a couple of things that kind of drew me away from that. Number one, cost. I really, to be honest, couldn't really find one for under $100 that wasn't in really, really bad shape or had some dents on it. That's no good for me. Also, I don't like the idea really of hacking up and chopping a factory fender, especially when it's got that nice factory paint on it. I just feel like it could be used. It could be used elsewhere. And also, you know, a factory fender is going to have all the little holes all on the side of it and everything that I'll be dealing with. So here's what we're going to try. So we got this lovely gem of a fender here from Lowbrow Customs for only 70 bucks. I actually think it was on some kind of a clearance or something like that. But anyway, happy to get it so cheap. At least it was cheap to me. But here's our idea. Here's our plan. So first of all, the width of the fender is perfectly fine. It actually fits in there really good. I might need a few washers as spacers, but that's about it. And it's going to fit over the tire and the wheel nicely. But we're going to have to do some chopping, and here's why. This fender as it is will not fit in there. There's no way with the way the Softail swing arm is. So what we're going to do, this is the plan, is we're going to get her over there in the bench vise and just start hacking away. We're going to do a little bit at a time until we're kind of comfortable with how it's sitting in there. And it's going to be a balance of, you know, does it need to go higher? Does it need to go lower? Does it need to, you know, is the seat sitting on it correctly? And also we are going to throw the rear wheel on. It's not going to be going on permanent because I still need to do some work. But we definitely got to have that rear wheel on to get it mocked up right. So we're going to go over there. We're going to get the grinder out, and we're just going to start here, I guess, at kind of at the bottom. Just start working our way up and see where we get. Well, I guess we'll start right here. Good a place as ever, I suppose. So after our first cut, we're mocked up, and of course I threw the wheel on. Now the wheel's not staying, it's not on for good. We got to pull the wheel back off to do some more work on it. So just pretend you don't see it on there. But what I'm going for now, there's a lot more I need to be doing to this fender concerned about, but what I'm worried about right now is the front to back. This looks okay to me. It still reeks of being very stock. So what I think I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take a risk, and if I'm wrong, then I might be just throwing this fender out. I hope that's not the case. We're going to go ahead and take about an inch or two off of the end here. I want to get this thing a little more aggressive pulling forward. And then from there, if I'm happy with that, because if you look, the seat's not too bad. And I've even got it, it's even not even lifted up like it should be. I've just got some towels underneath it. So I think we're going to be okay with the seat the way it looks. And of course, there's a few other things we can trim and cut. But let's go ahead and take about another inch or two off, and hopefully we'll be okay. And let's see where we get. So now I think I'm happy with the length. We took about, I think it was about 1.5 to 2 inches off the front there. And now we're showing a little bit more tire, but we still got a long way to go. This mount hole I'm not worried about. This one's going to be, you know, this is going to be the last ones we do. The concern is up here. What I want to be able to do is lift the fender down here up a little bit. And that'll allow this to kind of, this back end to go down a little bit so it doesn't look like a motocross bike fender. But also help with the seat alignment. So, I'll show you this. Get this out of here without messing up our high-end towel there. So what we need to do is make us a little relief cut in through here, like a square. And if you look at a lot of factory fenders, they actually have that. I mean, the FL fender we took off this bike had it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that FL fender as a template to cut us a little square. Just use the grinder, of course. And then that piece of rubber, when we're done, we're all happy with it, and we clean it up, I can take that same piece of rubber and just attach it right here. Because that way you don't have stuff flying up, hitting all your electronics. So the idea is to keep this same length, but be able to kind of level this thing out a little bit, while also making the, where this meets up to the fender meets the seat, to look a little bit better. All right, get our extremely precise measurements here for making this cutout. About, we'll call it 4.5 inches. I think that'll be a good place to start. I do think that I'm going to have to take off significantly more material off of this fender than this FL one, but we'll start with this. And that looks close enough. Don't cut myself. I probably should smooth out those edges. And we'll start there. All right, about here. That's good enough for me. Here on the sides, I'm not really sure. I think I am going to have to take off much more material, even getting into these corners on this. So what I think I'll do, just to keep them consistent, we'll come up about 1 inch from this. That's good enough. And of course, we'll throw this on the bike real quick to make sure it's going to be hidden. I'm not going to film that, but just makes sense. So I better make me another mark over here like this, so I can have sort of a good marker. I don't know if I can get to it. Very precise, as you can tell. All right. I think that'll do. There. About that is good enough. And again, like I said earlier, anything we cut out, we're going to cover it up with a piece of rubber. It'd be cool to actually recess this down in there and weld it up, but that's kind of beyond my skills. I can weld, but I'm not going to mess with welding this thing. I think we're a little bit better. We're closer. Of course, we got a big enough opening in there now we can get to everything. But need to remove a little bit more. I want to free this end up here just a little bit, but it's definitely going to be different, that is for sure, and that's what I was going for. So these edges right here are actually hitting the bottom of the seat. So we're going to just kind of make up a measurement here. Boy, I need to clean these edges up. I'm going to cut myself. We're just going to massage these down. That'll work. I think that'll work. Let's get out our massager here, see if we can get this cut. Well, I think it's better-ish. I'm still not 100% on it. I don't know what it is. But here's what's going on still, is we're still hitting the seat pretty good. The gap is not bad. I mean, I can live with that gap. But what it's doing is we got clearance now down underneath here, which is good, and we got the space that we need to get to everything like the battery and all that. But it's still hitting the top of this square window that we cut out. And to fix that, I could actually cut it up some more, but my fear is if I do that, it's it's going to start showing, and I definitely don't want that. So not completely sure on that. The right way, if you really wanted to do this the 100% right way, and I don't mean put the factory stuff back on, I know some of you will say that, is to actually make you a custom fender, which would cost quite a bit of money, and then make you a custom seat pan to match that fender, that is above my pay grade, and we're not doing that in this garage because that is way too dang expensive. So we're going to make this work. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to sleep on this, which means I'm going to come down here for about 4 or 5 hours tonight, stare at it with a foggy brain. And we're going to either get our mount holes going tomorrow so we can at least get this thing kind of situated on here better, or we're going to do some more trimming under there. So we'll figure that out in the morning. Well, as expected, ladies and gents, I have another idea here for something to cut after staring at this thing last night. So right here, got a marking, a little Sharpie mark, you can see. I got the same thing on the other side. We're just going to hack these little pieces off. The reason is right about here, maybe about a ½ inch down, this fender is actually making contact with the frame. This area right here is where it's hitting the frame. Now that doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. Actually, I kind of like it. The reason is that with that fender resting on here and then bolted up here, to me it just makes it a little more stable, but it's not really necessary for what we're doing. What I'm hoping is by removing that material, it'll allow me to kind of just sink this part of the fender down. This, I guess we'll call it this side, the front down. What I'm trying to do is get a little bit better curvature, I don't know if that's the right thing to say, out of the fender to kind of follow the curve of the tire a little bit. I think that's the part that's kind of throwing me off and making me not like it as much. If we end up lowering it and we like it and it works good, but I'm making contact with the swing arm down here, that's not a problem. Use the grinder, massage that out a little bit to where it'll be able to, the swing arm can move, because the swing arm is going to go in this way anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It'll just be a slight adjustment. So let's make the cuts and see where we get. So we got some more adjustability out of the fender. I don't have it mocked up because, quite frankly, I'm kind of getting tired of looking at it. My brain keeps going to the same thing. I don't know what's wrong with it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to wait to finish mocking this, or finish mocking it up, whatever you want to call it, until after we get this bike on the ground. We got to get this wheel on permanently, which means we got to do more work to it. We got to get the front wheel on. Also, we're putting ape hangers on this bike. I want to get those bars on there so I can at least visually see the whole bike and see how this fender looks. Plus, of course, you got to take into account movement of the swing arm and all that. So I think this is the right thing to do. Probably should have done that to begin with. We are not going to give up on this. I definitely want to try something different. I do think it's going to look pretty cool, but want to just, like I said, just want to pause. Here's the cool thing. If somebody buys this and they decide they don't like this fender, I'm actually going to give whoever buys it those little strut covers, those chrome covers that go on this. All they have to do is just mount this right on here, and then you can buy you an aftermarket style fender that'll fit, OEM style, but it's aftermarket, or you might be able to find an OEM one, and it should just bolt right up. So it'll be a pretty easy fix. I was considering when I first got it about cutting these off and doing like, swing arm mounted thing, and I could do that in the future on another bike. I just didn't want to ruin this frame. I liked it too much. That's why I didn't do that. So at least that gives somebody the option to do that. So again, we're going to hold off. I hate to do it, but I do think it's the right thing. So now, where do we go from here? I think what I'm going to do next is we're going to go ahead and get the carb mounted, which isn't really a big deal. But I got a brand new breather to go on it. It's pretty cool, so let's go check that out and get it ready to mount up. So I picked up this little tiny breather right here from Lowbrow Customs. Now, I buy a lot of stuff from Lowbrow. I'm not affiliated with them. I just like their stuff. Now, yes, this is small. Another cool thing about this, too, is it's 100% U.S. made, at least this part of it is. And the reason I like it is because it's going to expose a little more of the engine now that we've painted the motor. I think that's going to make it look a little bit better as well. Got this cool little louvered cover, just a basic filter, hardware. This back plate right here is actually some pretty heavy duty steel, so I like this. And also, our bolt holes actually line up. It seems like every time I deal with stuff like this that's aftermarket, that's an Amazon special, never freaking lines up, and you end up having to drill out holes, which is not something you should have to do if you're buying something that's supposed to line up. Well, if I could just get that screw back in there, that'd be good too, wouldn't it? Now I got to get this support bracket right here. This is necessary, of course, to mount the carb. I'm not sure why they don't bundle these, probably because this is somebody else makes these. They might be imported. This right here was about 25, 30 bucks. Had to get that. And then since we are running an S&S carb and we can't use the stock style or the stock S&S style enricher, I'm going to run this guy right here. I think it's going to be functional and also look pretty cool. We'll get this guy started on here. I love how these bolts just go right in here, or these fasteners. Stuff actually lines up. It's a miracle. Boy, this thing is not, there is just not. That is a tight fit. I know you don't want it to come off. Jeez. This is crazy. I don't remember these ever being this tight. There we go. Good grief. What a pain. We even got us some new fancy bolts here to dress it up some. And by the way, if you're like me and you're sick and tired of going to like your local home improvement store and spending a fortune on fasteners, I've been shopping at Bolt Depot lately. Not affiliated with them, but, and I don't know how their quality is versus other stuff, but man, they are a lot cheaper. And you can buy them as eaches. What's cool is even with shipping, they're always a lot cheaper than going to the store locally, or to like the, you know, the big box stores and all that. So check them out. It can help you save some money. It is so much easier doing this with the tanks off. I got everything loosely fitted on here, and our support bracket's actually flush against the heads, which isn't a problem. The problem is I ordered longer bolts thinking I was going to have to shim it. But that's what saws and grinders are for. Let's see how far off we are. Yeah, I might need to take like a, yeah, we're going to have to either get shorter bolts or take just a little bit off of that. Well, because I'm extremely cheap, I was going to cut these bolts. But on second thought, I don't want cut bolts going into these soft aluminum threads on these heads and get stuck in there, because that would not be good for the next owner. But since they're so close, we're just going to space them out a little bit. Because again, you know, cheap. See how that does. That should be good enough. Yeah, that's going to work right there. Easy fix. Oh, I got the, I put the washers on the wrong side. That's no good. Fixed. Well, this thing went on nice and smooth. Nice to actually have something that goes on as advertised. Big kudos to Lowbrow for this simple but good setup. I could see myself using this on other projects in the future. Can't forget our fancy little enricher. There we go. Easy, easy. That looks pretty slick. Wow, 12 millimeter fits it better than ½ inch does. Go figure. Oh, that's pretty slick. Now the real question is will it work? I guess we will find out. Well, I got to give Lowbrow a huge thumbs up on this breather. It's simple, very durable, and it fit perfect. What more can you ask for? Yeah, I think it looks pretty darn cool too. I think I like it. Well, this video's kind of gone downhill since we had to cancel on the rear fender, but I guess you can't win them all. Now, for a lot of these small parts that I take off the bike, usually what I do is just pull them up here on the workbench and just get to work on them. I don't film all this stuff necessarily unless it's like something, you know, really important or something. I feel like it simply because, let's be honest, these video series probably already last longer than they should. But what I do is a lot of these parts, you know, like for example here, this is our clutch lever. I've already taken this one apart and cleaned it up some. Still needs to be polished, but you know, just check it out, make sure there's no rust on it, anything like that. If there is, you know, do the best I can to remove it. You know, rust can come back, but just try to make it look a little better than we found it. These pegs right here, these were actually passenger pegs, and cleaned them up. These are gonna, well, they're not just passenger pegs, but I'm gonna be running them on the front. And even took the bolts right here. These are the bolts that we pulled off of the other pegs that were on the front and cleaned them up. So now you kind of have a nice clean look on them. So that works out pretty good. You can see here we do have the master cylinder, well, not completely apart. We have the lever off, but I did remove the brake line on this because since we're running ape hangers, we need an extended brake line. Going to clean up the brake caliper the same way, just up here. And of course, this guy will look pretty good when we're all done. But, you know, just getting into all the details, like this guy right here. I mean, everything's going to be cleaned up, polished as best I can to make it look a little better. One thing I did notice that was really cool, I wanted to share with you guys, is this. This may not seem like a big deal, but this is the simple little, you know, shift, not the shift lever, why the shift linkage. Goodness, I can't even think. This thing right here is actually, when you get up and look on it, number one, the ends, I forget what you call these little pieces that move. That's what I'm going to call them. Pieces that move. You know what I mean. The little eyelets there on the end, whatever. Correct me in the comments if you'd like. This is actually polished stainless, I'm pretty sure. And this thing is freaking nice. The fasteners on it are outstanding. These still move just butter smooth. So somebody actually put some money on this, or into this, I should say. And I think this is going to look pretty good up against that engine with all that fresh paint on it. But just wanted to show you guys. But anyway, these are just some of the things I work on off camera. I will spend quite a bit of time on this stuff, especially whenever you have any kind of rust on everything, to try to clean it up. And, you know, to me, it's just those little touches, those little things like that to kind of add up to you know, to kind of make the whole bike look better, I guess you could say, when you get it all together. So other than the rear fender and all the paint work we did on the engine, these are the only two parts I think that we're going to rattle can up. Now for the top motor mount, I'm only doing this because I'm not putting the horn on, because the horn that's on it doesn't work, and I'm just not going to spend the money to get one. I did consider cutting this just to make it look a little bit better, but I want somebody to be able to put the horn back on if they want, and then I'll just leave the little wire up there in the wire harness to come down and hook up to the horn. And then on the, of course, the top clamp, this one kind of goes without saying. It needs to be dressed up a little bit, but it's pretty cool. I think it's going to look good on the ape hangers that we put on there. And then we'll do the same thing here that we did on the engine fins, is we'll paint it, and we'll just go back in and just clean this part off. You know, I guess I could have gotten a horn for this, but I'm going to be honest, I'm just way too cheap. Plus, I've already spent quite a bit of money on this bike already. Now, just to be honest, when you rattle can stuff like this, you're never going to get coverage. You're never going to get the durability of the original coating. So just, you know, just to kind of level the expectations. Chances are, if this thing gets hit or touched or anything like that, knocks up against it, it's going to chip off. So it's not really a good permanent solution. But, you know, in a situation like this where you're just trying to go over everything on the bike, it helps you save some money. But if you want something to really, really, really last, your best option, honestly, is just to either have it powder coated, which I wouldn't spend the money to do that on this. I would just go buy another one. Or, of course, pick you up a nice fancy chrome one. Well, I got the door open with the rain going on outside. It's probably not smart to do this with the humidity, but whatever. Now that this is all dried, let's see how sandpaper does on this. It seems to be working some. are about there. This is looking pretty good. I suppose I could have just left it all black, but I think that looks pretty cool personally. I think that turned out pretty darn good. Might have a few little spots to hit right over here, but for the most part, it's pretty much ready for the bars. Well, simple part, but glad to be getting something back on the bike. Any progress is good, I suppose. Well, these things are... There we are. Well, I made this motor look so dang good that I got to be careful putting stuff on it now. Will the ratchet wrench fit? Oh, good. Success. Now that I'm mounting this up, I do remember this shaft right here being a little loose in here. I think what it is there's bushings that go in here. Those bushings may be worn, so I'm going to go ahead and mount this, but I might tear back into this later. I would hate to do all this work though and have this all loose when it's a pretty easy fix. Of course, these controls, the other side's bent, so these controls have been through a lot. Tell you what though, the shift linkage sure does look good though. That I'm liking, especially up against this freshly painted engine. Pretty nice. I'm actually a fan of these O-ring foot pegs right here. I know a lot of people run them, but the nice thing is if you wear out the rubber on your pegs, all you got to do is buy a cheap pack of O-rings. It's just a good way to freshen up the look of your pegs without spending really much of anything. Probably should have mounted this coil before I put the oil tank on, just in case I drop something. And yes, there is normally a cover that goes on this. This bike did not have it. And I am not going to go track one down. So we're just going to go wide open. Our plug wires here actually they're not factory, so they're new-ish, we'll call them. They are going back on. That's about it. And this will have to be zip tied, I think, yeah, right up here on the motor mount. I'm actually going to wait just because we got to finish up this loom and get this all attached, and that way we can do all that together. I think we're going to call this video a wrap here. Still kind of bummed about our fender back here. Wanted to get it done, but you know what? I really think waiting is the right thing to do, just to see the whole bike in its glory on the ground, to see how things are going to look. And the tape here, in case you're wondering, is just me messing around late one night to figure out if I want to cut anything. But we'll get to that later. That's a much later on problem. We did get a few things done though. Really digging our intake right there. That came out really cool. And of course it bolted up nice, which is kind of rare these days to find something that actually fits. And of course we made some progress over here. Just little things here and there. Nice to get that stuff off the workbench and, you know, get it back on the bike. But it's starting to look like a sort of a functioning bike. Of course we got quite a bit more to go. But next on the list, we're going to the bar. That's right. We're going to start on the wonderful handlebars, and that's going to help us, you know, once we get those mounted up, that's going to help us also get to this wiring and finish all that up. But the bars are going to be pretty involved. We've already got throttle cables for the bike that I honestly hope they fit the way they're supposed to, since I kind of ordered them blindly. We got a new clutch cable coming, a new brake line. Probably won't get to the brake line until much later on because we need the front wheel on. But we are going to be running, not only are we going to have to redo our wiring for the switches, we're going to run internal wires in the bars, and the bars are not even drilled for that. So got quite a bit of work to do on those, but I think it's going to look pretty good when we're all done with it. Well, ladies and gents, even with us having to hold off on the fender finishing up, which I think was the right thing to do, we still made some pretty good progress on the bike. I think she's starting to look pretty good and starting to look pretty darn clean too, which is surprising me how good it's turning out. But like I said, we got more videos to come. We're going to be starting on those handlebars next, so if you want to catch that content, don't forget to subscribe. That video will be coming out soon. And as always, I thank you guys so much for watching. We'll chat with you next time.